Welcome to another episode of Doubl3Tap. Today we are joined by Giulio, the co-founder of MON Protocol. MON Protocol is essentially a Web3 publisher of the infamous Pixelmon IP and also the creators of Pixelmon game. Giulio, hello sir, how are you?
Hi Jackal, thank you for having me.
Yeah, man, excited for this one. Before we dig in, as always, disclaimers out the way. So the content in this show is for entertainment and educational purposes only. It is not financial advice. The opinions shared by Alex and I are our own, and we may have investments in either the projects or assets talked about in the show. More specifically, Delphi is a proud investor of MON Protocol and Pixelmon. So onto the meat of the show. Giulio, what games have you been playing recently?
Well, as running a company and a father of two, I think playing right now has become mostly research purposes. We have two mid-core games in development. One is down the, let's call it dungeon crawler hack and slash intersection, and the other one is a turn-based mobile RPG. And effectively, if you look at my playtime right now, it's research for those two games. So for the former of them, I'd be spending a lot of time on Hades, One Piece Pirate Warriors, a little bit of the good old Dynasty Warriors, mainly to observe the animations and such. While when it goes to the turn-based RPG, spending a lot of time on the leaders in the category. So from the Asian studios, Seven Deadly Sins Grand Cross, amazing game and animations. And from the Western studios instead, Marvel Contest of Champions. Particularly for Marvel, I'm very lucky. We have on our team, don't know if you guys heard of him, Citin, Man of Legends. He's part of the design team and he's one of the biggest YouTuber streamers and whales in Marvel. So he spent a lot of time coaching me to the game and prepping me forward. But yeah, that's the roster at this time. Wish I could go back to my hours and hours on Red Dead Redemption and such, but right now the capacity is not there for my AAAs.
What is it that you like so much about Hades? Is it like just the combination of like the art, music, kind of the replayability, the diversity of the builds, or I'm curious what keeps you going back?
Yeah, I think it's a combo of those, but again, you start. What I realize is the deeper you are in development, the more you start observing. You start playing a game with an eye towards design and the decisions and consequences effectively. So what I find very interesting, I mean, for example, what we spent a lot of time remapping down from playtime about Hades just 2 weeks ago was the correlation between abilities and enemy types. So I was fascinated by how effectively you can, once you start realizing that and thinking through it, you can literally correlate every enemy is actually testing you for a certain ability, and every ability is actually fitting back to a certain enemy type. And while that may come natural after hours of gameplay, when you sit down and actually map it down, it's beautiful, the elegance of it. And it's what ultimately, for me, also distinguishes the Hades game style very clearly from the Musu and hack and slash type game styles, where instead you could just smash any button with waves of enemies and not have to think about specific abilities other than charging up an ultimate for when you're surrounded.
All right, cool. So getting right into it. So Pixelmon, lots of people know Pixelmon for its lore. They know Pixelmon for Kevin. Initially, just to kind of kick it off, is it the lore behind this IP that kind of drew you to Pixelmon? And was it the lore that you felt could help you with the distribution of future games that would be published by the MON Protocol? Or, is there another way that you were thinking about it early on?
Yeah. So, I mean, the reason we ultimately, we just, the full context there is we set up our gaming studios in 2021, and in early 22 we acquired as Jackal said, the infamous NFT collection Pixelmon just after its mint. The reason we acquired it was actually dual. I think the first reason, and actually what brought us in segmentation to Pixelmon, was actually the genre. So we had made a decision back in 21 actually to focus on a 18 to 35-year-old target, or if you want, slightly more violent, slightly edgier version of the Pokemon universe. And why? This was driven by ultimately two things. We're all what we would call Pokemon nostalgics. So as a founding team, we used to play hours and hours and hours of Pokemon, and we're old enough to have gotten it on the first Game Boy. But we kind of believe the current products, the products in general, fall short of entertaining a adult user base, while the adult user base is still very strongly nostalgic of the feelings that monster collecting gives you, both collecting, developing, befriending characters. The second layer was, we are second or third time founders. We've got backgrounds in the boring industries. 10, 15 years ago, we used to work in finance or consulting. And when you look at monster collecting, well, monster collecting has created the biggest consumer IP by grossing revenue ever. Ultimately, good old Pokemon is 2x the revenue of Mickey Mouse and Friends in 1/3 of the time. It's 10x Star Trek in half the time. So there were two, let's say a romantic approach and a very analytical, boring approach that collided for monster collecting. And then it was about, what do we buy or do we build in-house or what? And Pixelmon at that point just represented an opportunity, because I think at the beginning we actually underestimated the lore power. So that comeback power was underestimated. I would say today that's probably the biggest alpha we got out of the purchase. But at the moment of the purchase, we really didn't see that. What we saw was a community that stuck around. So there was a solid 30,000 Discord members that, even if the price had dropped 90%, was sticking in Discord saying, "Are you still making the game?" Now, that's powerful, no? You've just lost 2.7 ETH on an NFT, which is mind-blowing to me, within 2 weeks of mint. But your question is, are you still making the game? And that core group is still part of our Discord. It's now actually they're all slotted and segmented across channels, from lore development feedback to art development feedback to tester groups. So they're all part of what we call a collaborative development with the community. So yeah, the reasons were genre and community resilience, community fit. The alpha is the lore. The alpha is that comeback story, which is so powerful we didn't realize it would have that spring back effect for us. I do think, particularly, the memeable image surrounding Kevin, and Kevin as this symbol of nothing is ever dead in Web3 and has come back, has a positive effect for us. Gives us a lot of organic, or let's say nearly semi-viral reach. This said, I think we have to be very honest about the type of reach it gives us. So for now, it gives us a lot of good reach within the existing Web3 communities, and particularly the NFT engaged with Web3 communities. Kevin and that memeability is not a instrument of reach when it comes to acquiring or, let's say, transitioning Web2 gamers to Web3. It is not an organic engine when we're trying to get real gamers on board.
That leads quite nicely into the following topic, where I wanted to dive in a little bit more on the MON Protocol side of things. So for those unaware, like we alluded to it in the intro, but MON Protocol is essentially acting as like a publisher for the Pixelmon IP, but also third-party IPs and games that are going to come onto the platform. From my understanding, you are using like various different questing strategies right now, or experimenting with different questing models to then see how that can impact user acquisition.
I think the ball game is really changed when your questing platform is built on essentially is used more as a weaponization of a loyal community. So when your questers are 100 to 200,000 base of them is hyper loyal fans, then mixed with what I would call commercial questers, your questing platform, I think, becomes a lot more organically turbocharged and a lot more effective. And that's what effectively MON Protocol was able to put into place. MON Protocol was able, by bringing the Pixelmon community as a building block, and then a list of partner IPs onboarded as publisher, to create effectively a large quester base that has a very high demographic affinity to the product we're questing for. So effectively, it was created not by going out there and saying, I need questers. It was created by going out there and bringing together the communities organically created by a lot of web-free games that have been around building communities for a year or 2 years. Now, with that now base and that the questing tool not as a way to bring questers to us, but as a way to weaponize and mobilize communities, we've effectively been putting together or testing and A/B testing a bunch of strategies to, I would say, hack UA numbers. Now, and all of this comes from me, we don't have access to the exact algorithm of Google's SEO or the App Store optimization or any of the cost per click, cost per impression algorithms behind TikTok, Meta, or Alphabet. But we do know that ultimately somewhere there, those algorithms are trying to make products that are less organic pay more per impression or click than products that are highly organic. So what you want to do is you want to weaponize communities to increase the level of organic score that your products, your ads, your videos, your games, your apps have over the competition and average. And this may be just a matter of also making the algorithms aware. It's not a matter of just of creating organic momentum out of thin air as much as directing it. So let's make some pragmatic examples. If you are launching a new app on the store or an update of your app, either on Play or on iOS, being able to mobilize your community to drive a surge in updates or downloads or early downloads that matches with that update is going to have a very positive momentum on, or well, negative in the sense of reducing it, on your cost per click, per download, impression, whatever types of campaigns you're running, and on your organic App Store optimization score. We're not talking about creating fake downloads. We're talking about telling a community that would anyways download that to download it within a certain frame of time. And effectively, you are, by doing that, you are weaponizing the organic momentum and concentrating it. Other examples of this could be when you release a new video on YouTube or when you start your YouTube pay-per-view campaign, you weaponize your community to comment and review within a certain time frame rather than doing it organically over 2 weeks. You use the questing platform for them to do it within 1 day. And to my experience, over multiple campaigns, you will see a drop in cost per view. This is easily testable. I think commercial questing would not necessarily yield the same results because a lot of the platforms would see and penalize a non-affinity of demographics or an uninstall after the install or whatever the counter event is. But a loyal community mobilized can truly hack UA.
That That's super interesting. I am curious though. Let's say in a world where um, these ad networks catch on to such a trend and deploy various different, like they adjust the algorithm, they use more advanced like AI filtering systems to kind of combat this type of model. Are there learnings that you've taken from this that you think can apply to pretty much anything, any go to market strategy?
Mobilizing communities and questers has positive examples, even outside of UA. So think about the mobilization of questers around esport tournaments or esport-ish type events to ensure large participation and audience. Think about the mobilization of questers to support and accompany new entrants to the ecosystem. So and here it's the simplest thing that most games do, and the reason that forums and communities and Discord exists. A very engaged community will welcome and hand guide new members in its Discord and through the intricacy of its IP, if you nurture it the right way. So some of these measures work always and anyways. Some of these measures don't have to deal with any of the algorithms in any case. And yeah, I think what instead becomes important, and I think this is going to be key, as you said, the platforms and the AI starts entering more strongly the cost per click or organic algorithms of app stores and search networks. What's going to become key is keeping the audience of that questing platform clean. So as I said earlier, if an AI is going to very quickly spot if you have 30% of your audience based in Nigeria with zero play spend history in the Play Store, and that never really view and then views a video about two completely different topics. That doesn't allow it to fit in any real demographic bucket. So I'm sure that even a half smart algorithm would start spotting that very early. And what you'll end up with will be instead, probably a penalization when it comes to organic reach. And when it comes to actual followers, you're going to look silly because you're going to be one of those typical pages with hundreds of thousands of followers and very, very low engagement that instead turns off organic new visitors.
Curious what steps you're taking to sort of self police the community to kind of help reduce the number of bots, because I'm assuming in order to kind of like turn this like growth hacking funnel to 11, you're using Web3 incentives, right? Financial incentives. Yeah. So there will always be an incentive for bots to get involved. So like, what steps are you taking to help mitigate that?
Yeah. So we are taking a number of steps in our missions platform, but also, I believe this is a very hot topic right now, the so-called sibling system and spotting siblings. In many cases, it's actually for reasons different than the ones I mentioned. So we see Eigenlayer and others doing it mainly because they want to ensure their airdrop goes to high quality wallets. In my case, yeah, of course, I want my airdrop to go to high quality wallets. But more importantly than that, I want to avoid having the type of audience that actually kills my UA in my questing platform. So the layers we've been putting in are effectively two-pronged. The first one is to spot real users from non-real users. So we are effectively trying to pull multiple data points at a wallet level. So at the center of it all, we've got wallets. And then we ask users to connect to that center unique identifier, a bunch of other pieces of information. So I'll list down some of the things we've done and some of the things we are rolling out product-wise in our pipeline. Very simple stuff. This is basic hygiene, CAPTCHAs. You filter out most basic bots. Second thing is asking is looking at wallet age and wallet history and wallet AUM, so assets on the wallets. It's not a perfect filter, but it allows you to already bucket some information. Third thing is similar to the second one, but you have a multi-wallet login system. So you effectively ask users to increase their online score, so their reputation score based on on-chain analysis, by connecting their additional wallets to the one that they used to subscribe to the questing platform. This means that even if the questing platform wallet is a traditional hot wallet, maybe empty, but you might connect to it your high history OpenSea trading of those of GameFi IP's wallets, or the wallet that has played, I don't know, hundreds of hours of Gods Unchained. So you can start then from on-chain analysis spotting affinity to NFT collections, affinity to blockchain gaming, and kind of net worth estimates. Again, for the two reasons you're trying to bucket: quality wallets and affinity of community. Then you go beyond the on-chain stuff. You start asking people to connect their Steam account. You start asking people to connect their Epic account. You pull a whole new history of information on them. Third, you start asking everybody who has interacted in your Discord to connect their Discord ID. Connecting their Discord ID will tell you if they've actually interacted positively as community members and since when. That is probably your highest quality filter category. Now, I could go on and on and on, but effectively what you've created is a whole layer of data points. And then what you're going to have to try and do is you're going to have to try and create a basic algorithm that tells you maybe two scores: wallet score and community IP fit score. Now, and then you might have two different sets of decisions. You might say, okay, season one of questing has ended. I've got people with very high wallet score, but very low IP fit score. I'm going to reward them for season one, but I'm not going to invite them to season two. And then I've got all the guys with, even if they don't have a high wallet score, but they have a very high affinity score, I'm going to keep them around and actually invite them for season two and make sure they are in season two. We could go on and on and on, but effectively it's about pulling data points in and rewarding. And what you do is you use the point system, so the questing system, to actually do a quest. The quest is connect your Steam account. The quest is connect a bunch of other wallets with long history to your account. And then that's how you build your database.
One last thing we wanted to talk about, state of token launches. So I don't want to put words in your mouth, but we've noticed that you've kind of commented about this a little bit publicly on Twitter. Would love if you're open to share, kind of how you view maybe the current state of token launches, maybe a little bit why we're here, and your thoughts about what things we can maybe change moving forward.
Yeah, no, I did a bit of a rant about initial circulating supply, is what you're referring to. But so I think let's first take something make a statement that for somebody who's on the verge of launching a token is a controversial statement. Not a lot of founders would do it, but I think that accepting reality is the only way you can then work around it. And it is, the truth is, if we look at, and there were a couple of good analysts that posted some good posts, mainland guys. If you look at the state of the last 10 tokens launched by any of the top 3 exchanges, it's going to be very challenging for you to find a token with a positive graph. Even not if you take launch point, we all know everything peaks, but even if you take 1 week from launch point onwards. Now, that in itself is not ideal for the state of new listings right now. So there is some sort of essentially issue in between the relationship of buy pressure versus sell pressure versus inflation pressure. So unlocks. Now, you then take a second data point and start looking, and I think I'm speaking anecdotally, I haven't run the data, but anecdotally, I kind of get the impression that GameFi is a bit worse than DeFi and deep in other industries. And you start seeing that the actual early unlock percentages are more often than not in the single digit lines, too often below 5%. And if you get the luxury, like sometimes I do because we're partners, because we are part of the same community, to have a frank conversation with the team and dig one layer deeper, you often realize that even out of those single digit percentages, only a small percentage is actually what I would call uncontrolled circulating supply. So the circulating supply that is going to third parties rather than your market maker, your DAO, or your treasury. Now, when you compound that, effectively it means that anybody who would want to buy that token is probably looking at anything between, I mean, I've seen cases of 2% real circulate, so what I call the uncontrolled circulating supply. Now, it's probably staring down the line of a 50x inflation rate, and more than 10x in year one. Now, it takes a very strong belief in a product and in the market to become a liquid market buyer of something with a 10x inflation rate in 12 months. And I'll go one step further. I think as a founder, if you're doing that, the other thing you're telling the investor is that you are not a believer. Because if you are putting out 2% real circulating supply, you're effectively telling the investor you didn't have the confidence to do more than that. Which then means the investor would need to make a contrarian bet to the founder, or there would need to be a bunch of new information coming in. So, yeah, 13 years ago, I worked in investment banking, and I try to put myself in the shoes, not of the VC, not of the community. I try to put myself in the shoes of who's going to buy my token. And I really don't see how somebody would buy my token if that were the inflation rate staring at them. I don't think I have the answer to creating a good shape, and I'm certainly not saying that MON will have a better graph shape after launch. But I do think that if we all keep doing it this way, we are just spoiling, and I think probably we're already past a certain line, but the market for new token launches, where we start getting to a point where a hedge fund or a liquid institutional buyer, or institution can also be a good whale, yeah, but somebody with a little bit of brains is going to even stop looking at all at new launches, because they're just going to, even the standout one with large circulating supply is just not going to be worth looking at that category as a whole. I'm just going to start filtering for, okay, tokens that have been around more than 2 years. And if that ain't the case, I'm just looking for a diamond in the rough. Ain't worth my analysis time. You see more and more of this. Yeah, I think I'd really advise every founder looking to launch a token should start. I love Delphi, so nothing against VCs. We're a small VC ourselves, but you should really start following liquid fund managers and looking at what they're talking about. Because if you've raised your round, your next objective is those guys. So start following them, and if you have access to them, start talking to them. Hybrid funds and hedge funds are your next step. I don't think there's enough retail liquidity to absorb, at least for now, the growth in alts. We need institutional money to come into our tokens, non-VC institutional money, so funds with open-ended mandates, fund with clear hybrid liquid mandates. So if you're at the stage where you've raised and you're close to launch or you just launched, those are the guys you got to listen to. If you understand the psyche of their trading desk, you can drive institutional buy pressure.
So the next question that I have is, you've mentioned how retail might be a little bit turned off based on kind of the emissions, the initial float, and similar sort of story for liquid fund managers or maybe institutionals. I'm curious what your take is on maybe like the fair launch distribution or other types of distribution kind of mechanisms or approaches we've seen with like meme coins or maybe even friend tech. And, maybe this isn't necessarily a good fit for maybe the gaming category today, but just more broadly. I'm curious whether you think that, I'm just curious what your thoughts are, because like with meme coins and with friend tech, there are people that are participating in picking up these tokens immediately after launch. And it's not just retail, and it's not just institutions. So I mean, would love to hear your take.
Look, I admire it. I think one of the only couple of new launches I personally bought into were stuff like Friend. So I admire that approach. I really admire the fact that they are thinking, not a lot of people when it comes to tokenomics think outside the current meta. Most tokenomics distribution look exactly the same to each other. And they tend to self-destruct as a category. So I admire, first of all, the lateral thinking. And again, it solves entirely for the problem we were discussing about. Not problem, but the but, if you want, and you already said it in your question, is, does that work for GameFi? Or does it just work for social fi? Because I bucket somehow meme coins in social fi. It's all about culture. So and I think the answer is no, because in GameFi, ultimately you do need ongoing player rewards, ongoing player pools, ongoing etc. So the fair launch is certainly a different kind of proposition in GameFi versus social fi versus other categories. But there's a very wide span of shades of gray between a 2% uncontrolled circulating supply at launch, a 20%, and a 100%. And I think what gaming projects need to start doing is moving higher up in that spectrum. The problem is that you start seeing that unless you have a lot of muscle, the ecosystem pushes you back on it. So the ecosystem is pushing for low circulating supply tokens. Why? Because most of the ecosystem players that are supporting or surround a founder before launch are the ones with early unlocks. So then, I think the reality is, if you stood in front of that crowd and you started pointing and saying, what do you think is the North Star of every stakeholder that is currently whispering in the ears of the founder? And literally you have two options. One is create a sellable token or create an investable token. Effectively, everybody who has unlocks in the first 3 months has an incentive to create a sellable token. And statistically, there's geniuses in there, but statistically, you shouldn't listen to them. Statistically, you should only listen to the ones that have an incentive to create an investable token. So, and the ideal scenario is one where you have everybody on a 1-year cliff, and then just community airdrops, players on an unlock. The problem is you need muscle for that. So you need to have either had a very strong product, a very good financial independent backing, or a very experienced team. So yeah, it's not easy. I don't accuse founders. I think a lot of founders know this. They just, my stakeholders that are against this. A lot of stakeholders are essentially trying to flip their capital or the capital of their audiences launch by launch so that they can reinvest in the next launch.
A lot of food for thought, man. It's a good topic. to talk about and to just think about. And I think it's even more relevant now as we approach, especially Q3, because I think Q3 is just going to be like, there's going to be an onslaught of token launches. So, yeah, I mean, buyer beware, right? But on that note, I think we'll wrap up this episode. Giulio, it's been a pleasure, man. Really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you, guys. Really enjoyed it on my end too.
The content of this video is intended for informational purposes only and should not be considered as investment advice. The views shared by Alex and I are our own, and we may hold investments in some of the companies or digital assets featured in the video.